Man, we've gone all this way and we haven't even talked about Big Sean, bro. What are we doing? Detroit 2, it's out, bro. You didn't used to listen to Detroit back in the day? DatPiff, download the Detroit mixtape, play that in your fucking MP3 app on your goddamn. What was he rocking back in the day? In 2012, 11, when Detroit came out. Were you on like the third iPhone?
2012? I don't think I even had an iPhone then.
Is he still rocking a flip phone? A slide phone?
No, I was an Android game back then.
Because back in the day, yeah, I used to have to get on the computer, on the laptop. I used to check Hot New Hip Hop every fucking day. Okay, yes, I was a Big Sean fan. I was a Wiz Khalifa fan. I was a J. Cole fan, among anything else. What else was I a big fan of at the time? Nipsey Hussle, actually. Same era of mixtapes. Dom Kennedy, god damn. To this day, I still got the warm spot in my heart for Dom Kennedy. So I do really remember, like, Wale was another one. All these rappers that are no longer like that cool to the people that we talk to, at least. But that's kind of a long time ago. That was a whole last decade ago, basically. That I used to be listening to Big Sean, Finally Famous 3. But Dark Sky Paradise was the last time I really felt like.
Then jump out the window. What's that song called? Jump out the window?
Damn.
You see anything that looks like that?
You're catching me in a no. I'm looking at tracklist. I'm like, out the window, can't catch me. And here we are today with Detroit 2, which is like a huge project, I think. I think he pulls out basically every stop imaginable in the sense that it's Detroit 2. I think it's like the project people remember him most fondly for.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going back in with that. You're doing all these skits with stories from fucking Dave Chappelle, Erykah Badu, fucking Stevie Wonder. That was brilliant. Like, how beautiful is it to listen to Stevie Wonder just talk? If you don't got an Anderson .Paak feature on your album at this point, your shit sucks.
After one listen, I think it's like a solid album. It's like a good to very good.
Were you pleasantly surprised, or did you expect a decent sounding album?
I think Big Sean is one of those dudes that kind of gets a little more flack than he deserves. Like, I don't think that, like, he's not underrated or anything, but I do think, like, he gets kind of like, if you're talking about Big Sean, I feel like people are talking about, like, he's not very good. Like, I don't think anyone's ever like, oh, Big Sean's like really fucking good.
We don't hear people saying Big Sean, elite. So what I think we're referencing, right? When we talk about like who we discuss music with, and I hope to continue to diversify this a lot. And that's why I want to cover albums like this and give them the shine that most other places are going to give them, right? This is a big album for a lot of people, but for our bubble of music listeners, it's actually not the most exciting thing for them. And I think this has the same issue with all those other rappers I named before, right? Where when those mixtapes were coming out, it was the most exciting shit. It was like the premiere of hip-hop as we understood it at the time. You know, it was that range of popular music that's still on the come up, that has creative promise that we appreciate. Now we've gone so far into the future. Hip-hop has changed incredible amounts in 1 year increments, in 8-month increments, right? That me and you, we go back on a Big Sean album or the Wiz Khalifa tapes that we might have used to like, or the Wale projects, even though I think some of his earliest stuff does still hold up. There's going to be some pockets of those discographies that just don't sound ambitious anymore. They don't sound like truly the most innovative thing going on. And you know, the big part of this this podcast is seeking out innovation, creativity, pushing the envelope and still remaining interesting and applicable to a large radius of followers or not, and evaluating that. So I guess I'm getting kind of lost in that, all to say that in the grander scheme of things, I think people love Big Sean. I think people were incredibly excited about a Detroit 2. And I think the way this album plays out and all the stops that it pulls out, I think are going to be generally well received, because I was expecting a disappointing listen, and I've been disappointed by Big Sean in the past, and I was expecting something potentially disappointing. I'm pleasantly surprised by enough of what I heard on this. So I think anybody who was already excited about this is probably going to love it. It's going to be one of their favorite albums of the year. Yeah, I really don't have... it really was in the last... It was this Double or Nothing project with Metro Boomin that really soured the taste in my mouth. And then going back and realizing, like, okay, Hall of Fame album, pretty mid. You know, there's other albums in his discography that just like... Or even Dark Sky Paradise that I was excited about at the time. That made, like, my top albums of the year list that year somewhere pretty high. You know, I don't feel the same way about that album now. And I think for good reason. We've done a lot of reassessing what we really appreciate about music. Yeah, right. I feel a little like hipstery feeling that way sometimes, but you know, that's what it is. That's what this whole thing is about. Just exploring my tastes and whatnot. Where I thought this album could have potentially gone really wrong, honestly, was the amount of features and the amount of different people on this project, and would it really feel centered around Big Sean, or does it feel like he's getting carried by all this extra this and that, bells and whistles for the album, and again, pulling out all the stops. But yes and no. Like, I didn't think the Lil Wayne feature and song was the strongest moment of the album. I definitely didn't think the 2088 song, him and Jhené Aiko, I think they are a boring combination.
I know, and I will say, I put that kind of more, and I said this before, I kind of put that on Jhené. I just don't think she's that intriguing.
She's
of
not
an
that
artist.
dynamic. She's really not.
Yeah, she's really not.
I think you can get her on certain types of tracks, and she sounds phenomenal. And I think she has her lane, but I do not think she's the most dynamic artist. I mean, like Big Sean has his lanes for sure, and this album plays to his lanes, which is where I think the positive nature of it comes through. But you know, he's not the most dynamic, so you gotta get him into some interesting spaces. But overall, I would say, like, my final take on this. Oh, and I will rank the Friday Night Cypher sections, because I love the T Grizzly on here. I love the Cash Kid and the Cash Doll. So that first section is probably the dopest to me. The Boldy James section is beautiful. And we haven't heard Boldy on one of those nice, clean, really pretty sounding instrumentals. It's always been this dirty gutter, you know, avant-garde shit. So it was cool to hear him like flow, you know, really have to pace it differently than usual. Yeah, I'm with you, man. This is a solid album. It's not bad. I mean, for it being an hour and 11 minutes.
That was going to be my one thing, was like, it's an hour and 11 minutes. It has a couple skits or whatever. I kind of like disregard those when I'm taking into account like the length of an album.
And it has a 9-minute song.
So it's really not that long of an album. My knock would be there are still a couple tracks that I would just shave off. Like,
you could take tracks off of here and you'd have a really interesting album. You could go from 21 songs. A little bit more. Right. You have that long ass cut, and then you have like your skits or whatever, and maybe like everything other than that comes out to about 48 minutes. I could take out the Lil Wayne track, and I could take out the Jhené track, and I could take out the Travis track, and I'd be fine.